Hello and welcome to the Girl That Went For It podcast. I'm your host, Johanna Scholz, also known as Johanna Lian on Instagram, and author of Believe in Life, How to Dance in the Rain. If you want to live your dream life and become the best version of yourself, then this podcast is for you. I hope that I can inspire and encourage you to never give up and to always believe in yourself. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Johanna_Liana, for daily content. And now enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to a new episode. I'm here today with Millie. Maybe you remember, I don't know when I uploaded the episode, but I talked about my goals, plans, or step out my comfort zone things I wanted to do in October. And one of them was to go to a workshop, and that workshop was the Treehouse Gathering by Millie. And after the workshop or gathering, I asked Millie if she wanted to be a guest on my podcast. And here we are today. Today we talk about retreating, self-care, energy, recharge, and all things like that. So hi Millie, nice to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. Feel free to introduce yourself.
So I'm Millie. I have a business called Mind Body Alchemy, which is primarily mind-body coaching for women, supporting the beautiful women of the world to be more and more of themselves. And I guess it's a remembering process of, the strengths, the gifts, and just unlayering what's not working or serving anymore. I teach yoga, and then, I've just started doing the beautiful in-person retreats at a beautiful local winery where I was lucky enough to meet you again after meeting you earlier this year at a wedding. And I just absolutely love the energetics and the power we have within ourselves to create a really beautiful life.
That was such a cool retreat because I saw it and I remember I texted you straight away. I think it was the first one was sold out, I think. And I texted you straight away and I was like, this is so my vibe. I want to join the next one. And it was so beautiful. It was so nice to meet like-minded women as well and talk about all things. Like we talked about a lot of personal things in a group, which was really, really nice. And we also kind of talked about, self-care then. So today I prepared like 6 questions or like a few we're just going to talk about. And I might as well just start with the first question.
Mm-hmm.
What does retreating mean to you, and how do you personally define it in the context of energy recharge?
So retreating used to mean different to what it does now. So it used to mean maybe once a year taking a few days and going on a retreat. Like what most people probably think of. And as the years have gone on and I have realized the ability and capacity we have to really care for ourselves daily, it's a daily practice for me. So it's a practice of coming home to my inner landscape. So taking some time away from the external world and then experiencing the internal to give myself an opportunity to recharge, to see what might be there, and just to have that intuition, have a voice, which sometimes when we're overstimulated with outside distractions, we miss so much of what is already inside. We have a lot of knowledge and wisdom within us that we can access.
That is so good, especially in such a busy, noisy world, like you just said. We're always distracted from the outside world. I think I mentioned that a few times on my podcast too. Like we always have our phones in our pockets, can connect with everyone in like the blink of an eye, or I don't know how to say that, but like literally we're always available as well. And it's so hard to step back and just be with ourselves.
It's definitely, I think, a real conditioning to be available. And it's almost an expectation. And so it can feel uncomfortable to switch your phone off and not be accessed. Because we feel like we're just on, that energy's on all the time.
100%. And that just reminds me of another thing, like when you go somewhere to catch up with someone and you're running a bit late, back in the days, no one would say like, I'm 2 or 5 minutes late. You just wait for that person to come. And now we feel like we always have to make sure we're connected and let them know I'll be there soon. Like it's nice to let someone know, but also I feel like don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
Or-
And then it is, you like almost over-informing constantly. So then that's another, like somebody else is then receiving that.
Yeah.
And then they're receiving something else and receiving like, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, so I'm mindful of how I'll spend my energy and how I'll look after myself, but I'm really trying to be more mindful of how I will put my energy onto other people.
Yeah.
And because I think we so often can just like send a voice note that's like, you know, like,
Yeah.
but actually, was that more about me and myself? Was that actually all needed to take up that much of somebody else's energy, capacity, time? And because I think with voice notes and with messages, it is so easy just to fire things out at people all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being mindful of other people's energy and capacity and space.
100%. And with this example I just did with texting someone, sorry, I'm going to be late. This is already you, like your guilt, like feeling guilty of being late and feeling, and then putting that to the other person, like 100%. Yeah. How do you like recognize when it's time for a break? You also have your own business, and how to recharge your mental and emotionally energy. Yeah.
Definitely my body tells me I'm quite sensitive.
Yeah.
And so I'll feel I will feel tired for starters, but I will feel a bit more impatient, a bit more irritable.
Yeah.
I might notice I would just be bothered by things that I wouldn't normally be bothered by so much. And definitely with having kids, I'll get more snappy, more impatient.
Yeah.
And I can start to feel, where I'm at capacity and I don't have the bandwidth to keep giving. And if I do, it's not going to be a good quality.
Yeah.
And so I'll notice it in my interactions with other people probably. But then I have experienced anxiety before. And when I had postnatal depression and anxiety, that was when I really understood what that felt like and what that was. So now I will recognize when I start getting out of balance, it's almost like whispers of it, where I'll start to feel that inner tension and I'll feel it either in my heart space or just below in that solar plexus kind of place. Just the tightness of that, that tension and inner pressure that something's got to give, like this is out of balance. Yeah.
I think it's so important, like listening to your body, like what you're like feeling tired, not like pushing yourself to do more, put more on your to-do list. And really listening to how do I actually feel, right? Like just to pause and stop. How do you, like when you have this feeling of maybe you get a bit more snappy easily or something like that, what do you usually do? Like how do you deal with that to come back to yourself?
Yeah. So for me now at this point that I am, I know what works as a maintenance.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect. And I'm also not rigid by nature at all. I'm pretty like airy-fairy, go with the flow. Yeah. So I also am human that I make excuses for things, and will talk myself out of doing all the good things. So it's been a real journey of committing to what I need, which I think underneath is a real self-love, I think that can be the driver when we maybe don't have that real worthiness anchored into place, or if our self-love can be questioned within, it can hold us back from doing what we know we need to do. But there can be this self-sabotage that we get in our own way sometimes, particularly if we feel depleted. We can have the self-doubt and have the that inner critic that comes up. So doing as much work as I can on, that self-love piece, which might sound cliche, but it really does make a difference and it's not even necessarily love. Like it can literally start with acceptance, just accepting, meeting myself where I am and just accepting me for me and then knowing what I need. And so it's the daily stuff for me. It is, I know getting up each morning and nourishing myself and starting the day with me has been the biggest game changer. I know that time in nature is something I need every day if I can in some small way, because it grounds me. It really restores the energy balance within, inside and outside my body. So I guess it's knowing what I need and implementing it consistently but small things. None of the things that I do, I don't think any of them really cost anything. If anything, it might be like a tea bag for a herbal tea.
Yeah.
But it is stillness and
Yeah.
silence is something that's become more and more apparent that that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it can be one of the hardest things to actually sustain and do consistently. Yeah.
100%. I feel like when we ask ourselves, when was the last time you literally just sat still?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do anything, didn't grab your phone to be distracted or like, because I think, like I said, like nowadays it's so hard to just be.
Yeah.
Because you have this influence from the outside the whole time, and you could lay in bed instead of just focusing on your breath. You're like, I could just quickly check social media or something like that. Like, so I think that's such a good way, and nature is so good to just simply be and just reconnect with yourself. And like you said, it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
Like, to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
To just simply listen to your thoughts and what's bothering you. Maybe it costs a journal to write things down even.
That's
like,
right.
But it's like nothing. So
yeah. I really, really resonate with that, because that's a big part of just where I see the missing piece with so many in our generation is that, and it is that masculine energy, the masculine way of doing things is to be on, output.
Yeah.
And it's like we've lost the value, which is equally valuable, to do the input, to have the quiet, the stillness, to complete the season of output versus input, like that cycle. It's like completing the cycle of the seasons. We have our own inner seasons in a cycle. And if we don't honor that, that is where I literally did a post about it last night about contraction versus expansion, that it's so beautiful to be expansive and out there and on, but if we do not honor the absolute need for that contraction time, it's like childbirth. It's contraction and expansion is happening as you are birthing a child to create something and birth something. The seasons have the same. When a flower is blossoming, it doesn't just blossom and open fully if you watch it in slow motion. A flower will slightly open and then slightly close, open a little more and slightly close. And so there's like, when you look to nature for how the natural rhythm that serves, it's both every time for something to fully come to its most beautiful experience of itself. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And I feel like, if you just expand and go, you're going to burn out.
It's burnout. Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. But that can be the like, what's driving that? What's underneath? Is it the I'm not enough? I'm not good enough? I'm unlovable? Like, what is underneath that drives you to feel like you need to keep achieving more?
Yeah.
And that's so powerful to start to question, like, well, what is actually enough? What am I doing all of this for? How do I actually want to feel? Because I think if you put all the material stuff aside, which is what so often we can be conditioned to look to, is keeping up with the Joneses, or I have to have this because if I've got this, then I'm really beautiful, or I'm really important, or I'm really successful. Yeah. If you park all of that, like, what does success really mean to you?
100%. I feel like I say 100% the whole time, but I feel like, if you think you, like, once you have that, you feel this, but also that will wear off. Like, let's say, I feel like a good example is with a materialistic thing, a new car. I just feel like everyone can maybe relate to that. So you want this new car, and you feel like once you have this new car, you feel so happy. Or the new iPhone, for example, whenever the new iPhone comes out, I don't know, you feel happy and you can finally do this and that. But then you have this new thing, and after 3 months, this happiness is slowly fading off, and you look for something more, something bigger, something new, whatever it is. So it's really coming back to knowing that happiness comes from within, and how you feel. And like you just said, what's the underlying issue? Why do you need this new car, for example? I think Like, why is that? How does that make you feel? And I feel like a good thing is if you realize, okay, I need this because I feel this certain way. What in your life right now makes you happy, and what can you do more of to feel this happiness right now, rather than waiting for something to happen to achieve?
Right. Yeah. How do I find it right now?
Yeah,
that's
exactly
it. And what am I wanting to feel?
Yeah.
What am I looking for? What is this? What space am I hoping that this thing will fill?
Yeah.
And then if you can take the time, and that's where the stillness and the silence and the curiosity, I think an attitude of curiosity will always carry so well. Like, that's how I love to live my life. Really curious about myself, things that might come up for me, any kind of like friction within any kind of relationships. I don't want to blame anyone. I don't want to put it on them. I want to take full responsibility 100% for my end of anything that might be creating some friction.
Yeah.
What can I learn about myself?
Yeah.
How can I understand that person better?
Yeah.
The curiosity, it's because then there's an openness rather than a closedness.
Yeah.
To learn and to know more. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like you said earlier with success, what does success mean to you? I feel like that's such an important thing we also have to ask ourselves with anything. Like, what does success mean to me? What does a happy life mean to me? What does my dream life mean to me? Because often we think success means having X amount of money or having that many clients. But maybe success for you is to just have a handful of clients that really help you also to feel fulfilled and like, so
that's
really,
exactly like what we were talking about before we even came on, how I shared with you that that's success for me. That is me reaching my goals, was having the most amazing clients this year and not feeling overloaded and not feeling like I'm absolutely at capacity in every area. It has felt so balanced, and like I know I've been able to give them all of me while I'm with them with my time. But then I also have plenty of time to go all in with my family, with my friends, and with myself, and finding that balance and harmony, and then feeling it when it might kind of come out of balance a little bit, that what needs to be looked at here, is there something that I can let go of or something I can implement to bring that balance back into place. But if we don't give ourselves the space, that white space, to have the silence, to have the stillness, to even know how we're feeling, how am I today and what do I need today? Such simple questions to start with. It can just be such a small pocket of space. It can be an internal conversation. It doesn't even have to be written down, but to take an intentional moment to just check in. How am I feeling? How am I physically? A little scan of the body can be so powerful. That might take 1 minute, but where am I holding? And that's something I'll notice lately. I've been consciously taking little moments to relax my body. And especially if I can feel I'm rushing or I'm tense, or I might be like a bit pissed off at the kids or like Rocco or something. And so a little thing is I'll just stop and be like, relax your body. I've been really trying to consciously relax my physical being. So then I will take a moment and scan and notice, like, where am I holding? What's holding? And then I feel like, for me, when I've been able to just catch myself and just take this little moment, it seems to shift the energy and then change the outcome by me relaxing instead of holding tight and being rigid and feeling that inner tension. You can take a breath, and with that external outward breath, let a lot of stuff go if you choose to, rather than going where I would usually go, where I might be like yelling and like, or blaming and projecting all of my stuff onto them. Just to take a pause. It's just these little things, and it can be hard in the moment, but it's a practice. Like so many things we do each day. It's just adding that in to think, okay, I can catch this and take a minute, and I might still feel ready, but I might not respond or react quite in the same way.
I feel like the same whenever I feel like I have a lot of tension, like up in my shoulders, neck, and then also just taking a deep breath in and out helps so much. And just relaxing and really listening, like, where do I feel this? And just pausing is so important. 100%.
Coming back into the body.
Exactly. And then, like you also said, with setting an intention of how you feel can change your whole day. Like just in the morning, feeling how you're feeling and asking, okay, why am I feeling this way? Is that actually, can I justify this, that I feel this way? Or is it just a thought that's been circling around in my head the whole time? And then setting an intention for the day. Today I'm going to feel great. I'm going to achieve what I want to achieve. And also coming back to always wanting more and more. I think it's so important in the end of the day to just reflect all the things you achieved during the day. Because often we only see the things that are left on our to-do list, but we actually achieved so much and did so many little things like the washing or whatever it is between our busy life that we don't really put on our to-do list but still do.
I think that's such a powerful practice is to actually take a minute to write down what you have done. Especially if you struggle with that of kind of being hard on yourself for not doing enough and not being enough or not achieving enough in your day. Actually stop and write out what you did do and then celebrate yourself.
And even if you didn't do anything, I had this question coming up the other day, and that's also actually a question I'm going to ask next, but at least like if you just relaxed and you feel like you didn't do anything,
that's an achievement.
Yes, because you're the most important person that you relax and recharge. So the next question would be, how do you navigate guilt with taking time for yourself?
That's a big one. Because the bigger things that I've done for myself with having young kids, and I don't know, like this is something I was speaking with a girlfriend recently about, that the guilt thing with me and my husband has created a lot of tension, because it was almost like I would come at him to let him know I wanted to do something, but with a guilty energy. And he would maybe like give one sideways look or ask one question, and I'd be like down his throat, like massive blow-ups that have happened over the years with us, with me just trying to what felt like fight for time for myself. And so I guess what I'd say to that is normalize it within yourself before you even, if anybody else resonates with that struggle to create time, normalize the prioritizing of yourself, whether you are a mother or not, but knowing that we all need to look after ourselves, but women and men typically do it in really different ways. And so for my husband, like he'll go fishing. That's how he's going to top himself up. And he might do some like long weekends or whatever a few times a year, and that's what it might look like for him. For me, especially while the kids were little, I couldn't go away for weekends. I couldn't go away for a week like he used to. So mine looked like little and often, which I would still feel guilty about. And so I would really struggle to enjoy. And I do think a lot of that came back to that self-love and the not enough, of feeling like, well, I'm not worthy of that kind of care, you know? And so it's exploring your relationship with yourself, of how much you feel you are worthy of it. And if there is any question around it, doing some work around that, some inner work around that. And like Brené Brown stuff is fabulous. Like she's got her book about being perfectly imperfect, or the gifts of imperfection, to just explore more of all parts of you and own them all, to be able to be confident with knowing what you need and then acting upon it, rather than holding yourself back, feeling any kind of guilt, like you're not good enough, you're not worthy. Because the word deserving has come up as well, like over the last year or so, where I've just totally let that go as well, that it's not that I deserve it because I don't have to do anything to earn this time to look after myself. It's actually my birthright. I was actually born worthy of nourishing myself and being the best me that I can be. And I know what that looks like now. I know what that is. And I think sometimes for women, they don't even know what it is that nourishes them, what tops them up. So that's the best place to start. What is it? And then where can I start weaving it in the micro? Because I think the more you can normalize it on a day-to-day, at home, little things you do, or maybe on your lunch break at work, little things that show yourself a little like self-love act of like, I'm going to do that for me because I know that's going to top me up. I know that's going to sustain me. It might be a little lunchtime walk in nature for 10 minutes. I'm going to do that for myself because it's going to feel good and it's going to sustain me for the afternoon. So yeah, like I shared earlier, I love the micro actions, the daily, the consistent, or something that might be weekly, but it's a consistent little moment, ritual, time, retreating experience of coming home to you and topping up you. And that's, I think, the key to normalizing self-care in that way and topping yourself up, and the experience of it without having the guilt. Start small and then just build.
That's so good. I feel like one thing I often ask my community as well is like, what's one thing that you can do today that makes you happy and brings you joy? And for me, it's always my cup of coffee, for example. But like also just being aware and mindful of those little things that you can do actually every day that make you actually happy, because sometimes we just have the coffee and we don't actually be like,
the so moment good. You don't make it a moment. It's on the go.
Exactly. So that's such a good thing, like those micro things to do them during the day and really appreciating them, like having like an open heart and just being mindful and appreciative. Is that how you say it?
And present. It's like I'm choosing to be here, so I'm going to go all in. And I think that's a really powerful little tool to have, is like a master list of your soul nourishment, of the things that top up your cup, of the little things, because when we are overwhelmed, overstimulated, might be anxious, whatever, it's really challenging to access what we know we need. And like your partner knowing what it is really helpful. Rock certainly over the years has started to know what I need more. But for a long time he didn't, and he would shut down and actually go into fix it mode and try and fix it in ways that were so unhelpful. Actually, if I had had this list back then of things that I know, which, because like a guided meditation can be game changing for me, or a podcast can be game changing. If I go and listen to something that's uplifting, inspiring, just shifts my mindset. They're such simple things that are both free. That can just bring you out, or a bath, or like a 5-minute walk, or put a song on, your favorite song from an old school positive memory, and dance to it. Having a little list of these things, and then if you're feeling in a funk, being able to go to the list and be like, okay, which one of these is going to serve me best right now?
100%. Jules actually, he knows me now quite well, obviously, but sometimes when I get either, he says, do you need food? Because I get hangry. Or he's like, oh, maybe you want to do some journaling, or maybe just go for a walk. And I'm like, yes, I think that's what I should do. Like, he knows what I need when I'm a bit off. I just want to say one thing here that I realized, and I think I needed to hear that when you talked about, obviously you're a mum. I'm not a mum yet, but I feel like I already have the guilt. Like I already talked to Jules about like telling him I want to be able to take time off as well. I need my me time too. And you have your fishing, and I'm already making this scenario up in my head, how it's gonna look like. He's gonna go fishing for the week and I'll be home alone with the baby. And I'm already like, making this scenario up and talk about it to him. And he's like, don't overthink it. We figure it out once we're there and stuff. Like, but I feel like you just said, I feel like I already feel guilty. And I know like I have to find these micro spots in my week and day to take time for myself. That was so good to hear.
It's so I cannot recommend enough having those conversations, getting that all normalized before you have kids, because you just don't know what you're in for. And then when it happens, the reality for most couples is the part, like the male's life doesn't change all that much. His ability just to go and do something is just, it's so easy. It carries on. It's the same. The woman's is such an extreme change. Who you were is no longer. It is a rebirth for the woman as well as the baby. So then when you're trying to work out who you even are now in this new version of you, it is so beautiful and so incredible. But it's not that easy to nourish yourself and prioritize yourself in a season where by nature
Yeah.
Baby comes first.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
And so that's getting to know what it is that tops you up, exactly like you say, on the micro, things you can do at home that don't cost anything or very, very little before you have a baby, and have that to something that's woven through your week. That's your normal.
Yeah.
And because it can change, and it's being playful. I think being playful with finding things that it's not about just like going within
only
and
do
like
this one thing.
I have to just sit silently and do nothing. Like, actually, what brings you joy? Like you say, like what are the things that lift your spirits, but in a way that brings you home to yourself? Because that's for me like what that retreating really is. It's just taking myself like out away from the outside world and then coming home to who I am without needing that external or anybody else. Just me time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more question I had, and we kind of covered that a little bit. Can you share like an experience when taking time for yourself made like a positive impact on decisions that you made, or maybe when you don't take time for yourself and you answer quite impulsive or make decisions out of fear? So how did taking time for yourself change that?
Yeah. So I have one really big example of how that made a pivotal, life-changing outcome for us. Was I went on a retreat in 2020, and we had a huge year and had a lot happen, and I was really fragile, not in a good space at all, and that was really out of my comfort zone for that one. I knew nobody, and I went out to Cape South out at Waimarama, and it was divine, like such a beautiful experience. However, a lot came up for me through that time because I had created the space to be with what I knew was coming. I could feel I was very uncomfortable in my body. I knew that there was a lot of emotion wanted to be worked through. And it came through as an enormous amount of grief and just like post-traumatic stress. The clarity I made out of it, like long story short in a nutshell, was to sell our property, and which also included selling my dream space, yoga studio and treatment room that we'd built purposely for me. It was my absolute dream space. And to close my business and to not work and to draw a line in the sand. And so I went away for a few days, and then I came home to my husband to share what had come up for me.
Yeah. But
the clarity I had got in that time through taking that space and being really nourished made so much sense, because if we kept this property, we were already going to be moving. We were going to have tenants in the house. I would have then continued working. I was completely burnt out. I was not my best self, and I just knew I needed to stop working.
Yeah.
If we sold this property financially in that season, it made sense because we could afford for me not to work.
Yeah.
It would totally change our lifestyle. But we'd always been about accumulation and getting more and doing more and never enough, that old chestnut was coming up again. And all of a sudden this epiphany of we don't have to just have everything and do everything. What if we sold this property and actually had a pure focus on enjoyment of our life and our time and completely simplified our life?
Yeah.
So the conversation with Rocker happened. He wasn't expecting it. But once he kind of understood, we made the decision that is what we would do.
Yeah.
We sold it. I ended up not working for 18 months, which was just bliss, so healing, exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And a hindsight part, very unexpected, that property was absolutely annihilated in the cyclone.
I actually just wanted to say, Jules pointed that out to me, I think after the wet or before, I don't know. No, it was before the cyclone. He pointed it out to me.
Yes.
I don't know how the conversation came up. And then after, and I was like, wow, that would have been your house.
It would have been.
Or your property.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would have had tenants in there. We would have had my whole business.
It was all, it sounds sad for everyone who was involved in that.
100%.
But it was kind of meant.
That's where, like, with
Your
this, it was such a big thing to come up. It was such a big decision to make. And it felt like it didn't make sense, but it was this purely intuitive knowing of this is what we need as a family.
Yeah.
And we don't have to hold on to everything. We can let things go. in place of that is going to come time, space, simplicity, and joy and connection.
Yes. And I think that's so good. Like you said, everyone wants always more and more and more and trying to get more houses or whatever it is. But actually being like, we should live right now.
Yes.
Like, it's good to set yourself up, obviously, but also to really figure out what it is you need. Funny thing, every time I go away on like a little weekend trip with my one girlfriend, we always do our little girls trips where we really recharge.
Yeah.
Every time I come home, Jules knows that I have something that I want to change, either in our relationship or something that came up, like something I want to do more of.
Yes.
Every time he's sometimes a bit scared and he's like, okay, what happened? What do you want to tell me? Or every time I say, I'm actually going away with Maria that weekend, he's like, you're going away again. And then, yeah. And even I mentioned before, I want to go on like I traveled to New Zealand and I traveled by myself. And then even when I lived here and studied here, I did like a week in Redland by myself because all my friends were working and I didn't know Jules back then. But I just did like a trip by myself and oh my gosh, I loved it. I felt so reconnected with myself. That was actually when that was 2020 as well. And that year must have been like a
growth year.
Yeah. I also finished writing my book and I was just so like productive, but also at the same time, I remember I even wrote it in my journal. I got myself an ice cream and I was sitting in Redland and I just felt so happy.
Yeah.
So in the moment. I felt also, again, like a little child, like having my ice cream and just being so happy.
So connected.
Yeah, and I said to Jules, I think I want to go on a solo trip again. And he can't understand. And I understand that he can't understand because I probably would feel... But I know so much about the benefits and how much it helped me, so I would probably understand. But for someone who doesn't really know that, he's like, why do you not want to go with me? Or, you know?
Yeah. He hunts though, doesn't he?
Yes, exactly. So I was like, you have
solo time.
Yes, you have your solo time. And even now, I mean, beekeeping is really exhausting, but even then he's out in nature. And like when it's not super, super busy, it's also his time.
He has it woven in completely organically, so he wouldn't actually understand the need, I think is what that is.
Yeah.
You know? Men, they do have
Fishing
a lot more
and
solitary time.
Yeah.
And also, even when they are with other men, they're very comfortable sitting in silence. We did.
Yeah.
About how without the words, there is an exchange energetically where they top each other up, recharge.
Yeah.
So I think they get it so naturally anyway. But as women... we are just on and we're doing, and we've got all our friends and we're yucky. And there's so much stimulation that I think, as you do get older, you start to feel it more deeply, that need for solitude and for quiet and stillness, even if you're like me, like a real extrovert.
Yeah.
I literally Googled, like, can an extrovert turn into an introvert? Like a couple of years ago, because I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
There's this deep, deep need to remove myself from the busyness of life.
But I feel also when you talk to others about it, so for example, I was on this weekend trip, the Henstow, and then I talked to Sam and we're like, we have so many busy weekends ahead. We look forward to just having a weekend at home. Like once you start talking to other women about it, like, it's normal to... You don't have to socialize all the time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that is the recharge. It can literally be pottering at home. That's one of my favorite things, is being at home alone.
I started getting like those painting by numbers.
Yeah.
It's so
mindful.
I love it.
Yeah.
Put a podcast in or listen to just some music and then just do it.
Just for you. It's not for anybody else.
Exactly.
That's what I think the retreating really is about. Like, it can be the silence and the stillness, but it can be something just like that, where you are painting or colouring or whatever it is, some kind of crafting.
Exactly.
So beautiful, that nourishes the soul, because nobody needs anything from you. You are doing this for pure enjoyment.
100%.
That's where the top up comes.
Yeah. That kind of leads to the last question. Maybe we just sum it up. How can someone who's never considered retreat self-care start incorporating small retreats? Like we just said, make a list with what fills up your cup.
Yeah.
Do something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
That's right. It's finding the little things. And it can be little things like a cup of tea. Just quietly having one, and find a tea you absolutely love, or your coffee.
Yeah.
Making it a ritual.
Yeah.
Like have a cup
Yeah.
that is really just for you. Like I've got my cup, it's just for me, and I love it. So there's like an up level instantly when I make it. I love the way that I make it, and I'm trying to cut off coffee.
Yeah.
But I feel like I still love it. So if I don't have it every day, it's even more special.
Yeah.
But it might be a bath, and making the bath with some Epsom salts and some smells and bubbles, you know, like a proper bubble bath.
Yeah.
These little things that can just be so nourishing. And then just to communicate, if you have kids or a family, I'm going to go and have some time for me now. That also, I think, is key for anybody with kids, is to normalize. Like the kids know that my time in the morning is my time. And they'll come and they'll bust in a little bit, and I've let it go. But I will just say, I'll be with you when I'm done. I'm here if you need, but this is what I'm doing right now. And they get it. And I think it is such a powerful example to rewire what we are trying to undo right now. That if we can normalize that for the next generation, what a head start they have.
Yes.
So yeah, it is just these little things, and it might be paint by numbers. It might be coloring.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might be just a catch up one-on-one with a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. And I feel like also because everyone's different, you have to look at maybe your week and see, okay, where can I put in some self-care this week? Because what works for me might not work for you, or what works for you might not work for me. So just embracing your uniqueness and how you take self-care of yourself.
Yeah, because different ends of the day, some people will absolutely not be morning people and might find the end of the day a really beautiful time to do something really nice for themselves. Yeah. Once they've got their kids all sorted, or if there's no kids, it might be dinner and then have a tidy up, and then actually, instead of like sitting down and watching Netflix, I'm going to do paint by numbers. Yeah. And I'm going to put a podcast in, and I'm just going to, this is how I'm going to unwind, even if it's once a week. Yeah. Like might be a little weekly date with yourself at home. 100. Yeah. You know, like just these little things, and the daily things you can weave through are beautiful, but there are the weekly things where it might not feel like something you want to do every day. But then to think, right, wherever I can, like once a week, I'm just going to do something a little bit more.
I feel already so recharged from just doing this.
Oh, I love that.
I feel like we can end this episode just asking you as the listener, what are you doing today that makes you happy, fills up your cup, and brings you joy?
Beautiful.
Well, that does it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in today. If you like this episode and don't want to miss any new ones, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Feel free to share it with your friends or on social media. It really means a lot to me. It will help me to create this podcast. You can find me on Instagram, Johanna_Liana. I'm always happy to connect, so flick me a message if you want. Enjoy the rest of your day, and always remember, it's a beautiful day to have a good day. It's a beautiful day to be alive.